Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you about the developments in the EU in the space of e-health and digital health. I'm quite inspired also by the previous speaker about the different examples that he mentioned in Israel. Let me see, just moving to the next slide, because also when you look at the policy developments in the European Union, we recognise a lot what the previous speakers mentioned. There is a lot of pressure on health systems with an ageing population, but also a population that is quite demanding, that would rather see healthcare take place in the home setting where possible. So there's a large push from patients, from citizens, that healthcare should be more digital and that it should be more organised around the person rather than around the traditional institutions of healthcare. So what we see is obviously a lot of data is being collected. If you look at the data being collected across the globe, a large part of this data is health data. Many devices, some very expensive in hospitals, but some also cheaper, even your smartphone, they're all collecting health data. And also what we see is that the pandemic further accelerated the need to make these steps in the area of digital health. So you also see here two examples of what the Commission with the Member States has developed in the EU. At the top right, you can see the German example of the Corona tracing app, the Corona Warn app, which of course was used to basically inform citizens whether they had been exposed to a high risk of contracting the COVID virus. And at the bottom left, you can see the COVID Safe Pass as it was introduced in different member states using the QR code. And this too is built on European legislation, European health data standards, European interoperability requirements developed by DG Santé. And DG Santé, of course, being the Director General of Health, that is part of the European Commission. So when you look at the policy developments regarding digital health, there is the Cross-Border Healthcare Directive already in place since 2011. Which gives patients across the EU a lot of rights to travel across the EU and to be able to have access to healthcare. Part of the Cross-Border Healthcare Directive is also about digital health and e-health. Article 14 of the directive establishes the e-health network, which is a voluntary network of the member states' authorities that are specialised in e-health. And they've been coming together for many years now to discuss on a voluntary basis how the member states can work together to better organise e-health across borders. And I will mention a couple of the examples that have come out of the e-health network. You already saw the contact tracing apps, which were made interoperable across borders because of efforts in the Commission, and also the EU DCC. So this is the QR code digital COVID certificate. Both were introduced by the Commission together with the Member States, and the EU DCC, of course, is now a global success because many countries across the world have recognized that this is a standard that they would like to build upon, and this enables people to travel safely across the world. So this is truly a great achievement for the EU. What we've also done is a couple of months ago in May, we presented a proposal for the European Health Data Space regulation, which would build upon the Cross-Border Healthcare Directive, but then further deepen and expand the collaboration in the area of digital health. We've been talking to stakeholders across the EU, but also in Norway and Iceland and Liechtenstein, because they too subscribed to the Cross-Border Healthcare Directive. So there are 30 countries in Europe that are part of this collaboration, and we've been looking at what the challenges are. And there are many challenges. When you look at the individuals, the citizens in the EU, they have a lot of difficulty accessing and controlling their health data. This is at the national level, but very much so also at the international level across borders. The same issues we also see for healthcare professionals. They too have difficulty accessing relevant health data. When a patient presents her or himself to a doctor or a nurse, often it is very difficult for the doctor or the nurse to access relevant health data, and this leads to difficult and dangerous situations, because clearly if a doctor doesn't have relevant information about pre-existing conditions, allergies, vaccination, treatments, medication being taken, and they then don't have this information but do proceed to treat a patient, this can have even a fatal consequences. So there's a large need and a recognized need to share this data safely. Then there, of course, are also the providers of digital health services and products. So basically the IT solution providers, and they too face barriers because all these different health institutions don't have the same requirements, and therefore there are many barriers for them to be able to operate in the European market. And then on the secondary use, which is the reuse of health data to develop a better policy for healthcare, to perform research and innovation in healthcare. There too we see that a lot of these different stakeholders also have difficulty accessing health data. So what the European health data space legal proposal does is that it strengthens the rights of individuals in the EU in relation to their data. It gives them greater control. They will have greater access. They will be able to share data. They can add information, rectify, restrict. And what is important is that it will strengthen the interoperability and the data portability in a European format. So when you travel across the EU, when you go from Prague to Lisbon, and you need medical care in Lisbon, you will be able to exercise this right of health data portability, and you can tell the doctor in Lisbon, you may have access to my Czech health data so that you can provide me with better health care. And what does this mean? It means that we need to introduce rules for electronic health record systems. We need to introduce rules and mechanisms supporting the secondary use of health data, and we need to introduce mandatory infrastructures to make this possible. So when you look at the existing infrastructure, because it's already underway on a voluntary basis currently, 11 member states are live, including the countries of Poland and Czechia. So you can see here the dark green countries are already connected to the European infrastructure. So that's how they connect the national infrastructure for health data exchange into the European system. And we have two services currently live. So that's the patient summary, which already includes quite a lot of health data, and e-prescription. So that if you have medication prescribed to you in Warsaw and you visit Lisbon, then you can go to a pharmacy in Lisbon and then you can collect your medicines in Lisbon. This will be further expanded, so we're also working on medical images, lab results, discharge letters, and rare disease data, and more data categories are also still in the pipeline. And we'll also be working on a pilot to make sure that citizens can actually access the health data, because currently the infrastructure is geared towards healthcare professionals, but obviously also patients should be able to access their own data. So what does the legal proposal do? It strengthens these rights of individuals and healthcare professionals to access data. It introduces minimum requirements for specific health data categories in electronic health record systems through self-certification. There is the mandatory deployment of the My Health at EU infrastructure with different transition periods for different services, and it requires member states to designate national digital health authorities so that they can work together to actually implement EHDS. And then when you look at the reuse of health data, there too we propose to introduce an infrastructure to enable the reuse of health data by researchers, policymakers and industry. And then, of course, that needs to be governed by clear rules to make sure that everyone trusts the system. So here we would be working with a network of nodes, somewhat similar to the My Health at EU infrastructure. Here you would have national data authorization bodies. Some countries already have these, such as Finland, Denmark, Norway, and France. So we're building on those examples. In these countries, there's also national legislation in place to give these organizations a clear mandate who should have access, under which conditions, to which categories of health data. So we would be introducing this at the European level and connecting the national nodes. So currently the EHS proposal is being negotiated, but at the same time a lot of work is already going on. We have different joint actions either underway or being prepared. One of them is the joint action towards the European Health Data Space, TEDAS. We also provide grants to member states so that they can expand their services, and we'll be starting actually very soon a pilot with a consortium also for the secondary use of health data. So thank you for the opportunity to present the work of the European Commission and DG Santé, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you very much. We have a few questions here. Please, could you say a little bit more about how could the pilot project to be set up? You mentioned the different areas. I mean, who would be the stakeholders in such a pilot project, and how it could be done and funded? Or please, a few words on that.
Of course. So there are currently two major pilots that are underway. So the first pilot is about the patient access to health data. So what we then do is we open up a call for member states to respond to grants. And in this case, it was the country of Hungary that actually took the lead in forming a consortium. So Hungary, Zoltán Lantos, is actually leading this effort, and the pilot will actually start later this year, early next year, to make sure that there are solutions in place for member states to enable this access to health data for their patients. There is also the pilot on the secondary use that would start exploring how an infrastructure could be organized at the European level for the exchange of health data for the reuse. This consortium has been formed and is led by the French Health Data Hub. And in this consortium, there are also different parties, including the member states Denmark, Finland, Norway, and also there you have the EMA, so the European Medicines Agency, and ECDC, the European Centre for Disease Control, together with some research infrastructures. So these consortia have been formed, and one of the tasks that we always give these pilot organizations, these pilot projects, is to perform outreach. So they will also be involving other stakeholders. So you are always free to reach out to, in this case, the Hungarians for the pilot on patient access and the French for the pilot on the secondary use.
Okay, thank you very much. You also mentioned that something what's in the pipes is the exchange of the images. So if, for example, here we have projects which is neurological research on the prediction of Parkinson. So what would be the possibility to get the data from other European countries? I mean, when it could be or how it could be accessed, and what type of projects could be used?
So currently, the project that is working on the development of health data standards for the medical images and the lab results is called Cross eHealth, and this is a project led by the Portuguese, by SPMS, which is the digital authority in Portugal. And this project is nearing a close. So we are now looking in the Commission to look at funding opportunities in the future for a successor project. So if you have ideas of what health data exchanges would be interesting to organize at the European level in the future, and you have concrete proposals, then it would be good to reach out to us, because we will be looking at future funding possibilities and opportunities. And then as soon as we will be putting out those calls for these grants, and you would have concrete ideas ready, then this could of course be very opportune.
Thank you. The last question is about the, let's say, the e-health situation in individual national states. You mentioned that Denmark, Finland, Norway, other countries who are really moving forward. So how does it look with the rest of the Europe?
So indeed, what we see is that there is a large disparity of digital health maturity across the EU. And we see that some countries, indeed Denmark, Finland, Estonia, are at the forefront of this transition, and other countries are heavily investing, but they are trying to catch up. And also, all member states have their own national healthcare systems, and these systems are always organized slightly differently, and this has different consequences also for how you organize digital health. We are looking at ways to also support member states to make this transition. There is because of the corona pandemic, we did establish the Recovery and Resilience Fund. There are over 700 billion euros available in this fund. Many member states have put forward proposals to invest this money in digital health. So this is a great opportunity for these member states to make the leap forward. And we will also be organizing what is called capacity building to help member states develop capacity. They can have a conversation and exchange with other member states that are more advanced, to learn from the best practices, and then to see how they can implement them in the national context.